we have a bum steer, and I want to go a little bit easy on the bum steer this week, but well, maybe. So, some fellas by the name of the Occupy Democrats. You've probably seen them on Facebook, maybe on Twitter. Facebook, they're huge. I don't know if it's still the case, but at one point it was, if not the biggest, one of the biggest left-leaning groups on the website, doing the kind of basic, and I'll just say this, I don't think partisan news is bad, obviously. You can see what I do for a living. But I think it's sort of the how you do it. So,
well, this is brain dead kind of stuff, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, it really is. So Adam H. Johnson posted, people have been noticing this for a few weeks now. I mean, I've never followed this thing. I will talk about my sort of general allergy to these accounts that prop up. But Adam Johnson tweeted this out, which is a collection of these just god-awful tweets. So let's just read through these. Breaking, and a lot of these are really authoritarian, and we can.
Oh yeah.
Breaking news: Italy announces that it will make the COVID vaccine green pass mandatory for all public workers, and will likely soon extend it to all private sector workers as well. Now, look, I am actually I think some of the early evidence coming in from the extension of vaccine requirements is decent in America. People are just getting it. But I also think, I would have started, for instance, with airplane travel, just because I think you have to make a concerted effort to make this hit people of means, just to get that out of the way. It continues. A new poll shows that a majority of Americans support vaccine requirements for airline passengers to fly again. I'm fine kind of with that one, and also the arena, I think, to be honest. Gets worse though. It's all this sort of retweet if you agree here, which is, I think the fundamental problem is this is so structured towards engagement and growth that I think these people have kind of lost their track. So, for sure. Did you want to say something?
No, keep going, and I'll say my piece at the end.
Again, it's this really, we talk about anyway, Illinois Democrats introduced a bill that puts 10,000 bounty on men who cause unwanted pregnancy or commits sexual assault. Again, response to the Texas thing, but again, how we're choosing to respond to this stuff is, I think, bad. Retweet if you think Trump Republicans should be forced to refund again. The final one here, though, I really want to get to. Oh shoot.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Right. A big, all of us occupiers are big fans of Gavin Newsom. Great news. Here we go.
Wait, where did the landlord one go?
Oh, I didn't see the landlord one.
Sorry, I got to find this. There's one.
Well, while you're pulling it up, we're going to get into the history of this organization. I'm happy to sort of look underneath the hood, because it's, as somebody who was at Occupy, that's really was how I started out as a leftist. I remember when this group started to pop up and being like, who the fuck are these people? And they've only gotten more and more insane, completely untethered from any kind of the political tendencies that their name references. But yeah, get this out here.
So here's one. Breaking: a large Florida landlord announces that, a large Florida landlord announces that he will begin requiring all new and existing tenants to provide proof of COVID vaccination, saying, you don't want to get vaccinated, you have to move. If you don't, we will evict you. And then in all caps, retweet if you support the landlord's move.
So that's one of those things where pretty quickly you can go through that list of people who are retweeting it and supporting that. And that is a who's who list of who is not on the fucking left.
Yeah.
A sentence that a leftist should never say is, I support that landlord's move. It's really pisses me off, honestly. And I'm trying to be chipper about it. It really pisses me off because, the history of Occupy is one thing, and maybe we can do more in the future. I mean, we are a decade out from it, actually. which is pretty wild to think about. But I remember when I was like at Freedom Plaza, because I was in DC, sitting around with folks and listening to some people being like, yeah, it's like week 2 or something like that. And they're like, yeah, I think I've been hearing rumors that the Democrats are going to come together and they're going to send a delegation to meet with us. And we might even be able to meet with Obama so they could hear our demands and we can work together and become a part of the Democratic Party. And just looking at them and being like, are you fucking not paying attention to anything that you're learning right now or any part of this movement, who we're protesting and what we're doing?
Yeah.
Also, who's beating the shit out of us, right? Which is like Capitol Police and like DC police.
Okay, so let me
in a democratic city, right? Like what the fuck is going on in your head that you think that these, people are on your side all of a sudden?
and
then you see you see this and you realize that some of those people, they sort of disappeared from the movement, but they had like an association with the term. And then a lot of people who were just watching it were like, oh, well, those are just like that's the principled left, right? And I'm talking just like kind of like generic American citizen who thinks the left is like Nancy Pelosi. It really does infuriate me a lot after all the potential that Occupy had.
Speaking about like I really resent when certain people try to get me to give a fuck about Ashley Babbitt. I will say this.
Yeah.
Like, look, I don't think anybody should be killed by the state, but I also, like, if I'm ranking like the deaths that I'm super concerned about, Babbitt's not one of them. That said, this is not how I respond to this, which, I mean, this is insane to me. Breaking news, the U.S. Capitol Police officially exonerates the Capitol officer who rightfully shot and killed. Like, again, like, even for the sake of, like, argument, I might, like, I wouldn't say rightfully shot. Like, it happened that he shot her. I would exonerate him too, honestly, because, like, I think it's pretty obvious what was going on there. And, like, maybe he should have... I'm surprised more people weren't shot, honestly. And we all know that if it wasn't right-wingers... Anyway. And who rightfully shot and killed Republican hero Ashley Babbitt as she tried to break in the floor of Congress during Trump's insurrection. Retweet if you think that this is great news. Again, like, this is
a tragedy, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And beyond that, like, you and I have different feelings about the 6th, not too far, but a little bit different. But beyond that, get out of here with this shit. You can't be talking about Occupy people who 10 years ago were trying to and were actively making moves to try to occupy Congress, celebrating U.S. Capitol Police shootings.
Yes.
Right? Like that, it's just like you just don't get to do that just like by your name alone, beyond the fact that I think it's really despicable to be celebrating that death in the first place.
Yeah.
It's brain dead shit, honestly. It shows this is the thing that I think maybe makes me more mad than anything about liberals. And this is purely personal, right? This is not, I'm not making any big political statements here, but there's something that does get me mad about people who David Feldman has the best character from this. I'm a lefty from like way back, like this kind of person who's like, oh, I'm super radical. Like I sometimes talk to older folks who are like, I'm basically a communist, I'm basically a socialist. And you talk to them about their politics and it's just like super like centrist Democrat shit. Right. And this is just an extension of that for like, I don't know, weird 40-year-olds on Facebook and Twitter. Right. Yeah.
So there's this profile of these two bros.
I got the shit beat out of me by the police when I was in Occupy. It's just like
retweet if you agree David should get a baton to the head. But yeah,
and I mean the real joke about this, obviously, though, is for anybody who has any like experience with Occupy, is that you could never have a Twitter account like this for Occupy because we could never get anything like that done because we had such a fetish for like democracy, in the sense that like everything had to be debated this way and that way, right? And I think that you're just going to have a Twitter account that's just reacting to the news like this one.
Yeah,
absolutely impossible.
Here's this article, and it makes look. How Mexican-American twins from Miami created the liberal powerhouse. Look, people are going to get Krasnstein vibes from this picture. That's just the precedent that's going to be set. These guys aren't entirely sympathetic. This is a long-ass profile, by the way. Mexican immigrants not from wealth. Did go to Ivy League. That's one mark against them. And But I think the problem is really like a structural one with our media and the way that anyone can really plop down and squat important
Yeah.
sort of nodes of communication, like Occupy or like all like the Bernie for this city, Bernie for that city, that just randos decided to do. And even with the best of intentions, your audience can grow beyond your expertise.
Oh, for sure.
And if the money is right, you have zero incentive to be reflective about that at all. And that's what I see when I see these guys. And I mean, it's weird. And now that they're big property owners, tweeting this stuff out from luxury properties, they're going to say retweet if you support this landlord. Because they don't have any sort of real grounding in politics. They were just posting, and they got in the algorithm at the right time, and now they have this major, position in. I mean, man, we talk about the legacy.
A lot of
Occupy.
people interact with their stuff.
People think that stuff. People would just follow like all these accounts because they, like you said, like Occupy couldn't agree on that stuff. It gives the appearance that they did to people who didn't follow that, right? And it's like, oh, they got the Occupy movement got together and they have this Twitter account. No, not really.
So, I mean, I'd like you to point out some of the history of them in a moment, but I just wanted to share because it's funny. And Michael always thought this was really fucking funny too. When I had moved from DC up to New York, my first kind of gig, I was like trying to find some ways to make money, and I just applied for this like random posting for like a news writer, and I sent in a couple of the articles I'd written for Counterpunch, great lefty publication, and and some other pieces or whatever. And I get an email back being like, "We love your writing, like let's do it." And I won't say the name of it, but it was one of these Facebook pages very similar to the Occupy Democrat model, and it had around 800,000 likes on Facebook, which is like a dream for a publication to hit. And I actually think was probably the only writer. I think there was two others, but every morning I would just get like a list of like the top 15 pieces from like NBC News, CNN, New York Times, etc. And I was supposed to summarize those pieces, and they paid me $15 a piece. It was a nice situation because I could summarize that in like 20 minutes. I could be done in a couple hours for the day. But it was insane when I first started to see what was happening, because I mean, this is like Trump times too. So it's like everything was like, look how dumb Trump is, and 10,000 likes, all this kind of stuff, but they were making money, a shitload of money off of ads. It was like, eventually I realized that nobody was proofreading my stuff, or like checking anything. So I would like throw in all these kind of like radicalizing things, like John McCain would like, like a big news story I remember one time was like John McCain like blast Trump for his like lack of like civility or something like that. And I faithfully like sort of transcribed what John McCain said. And I said, funny coming from John McCain, somebody responsible for mass murder in like Vietnam. Anyways, I started like putting all of these like things that like, so I was doing this like bullshit clickbait, like liberal stuff.
Right.
But at the end of it, I was always throwing in like random little things. Like, I remember one time even just like there's something about Trump and golf. And I was just saying like, well, as Mao Zedong teaches us, golf is the billionaire's game.
That's a perfect model for when people say like, I'm doing this job. What do you suggest? Should I get a job that's more like political or whatever? It's like, I think, no, I mean, luckily, like it's a lot easier to make writing political than, working at a grocery store. But I think that is very, very.
But I was doing that for like the first half of our TMBS time together, and Michael found it really funny. He's always like, keep hustling, keep on doing those articles. They're funny.
I do,
but eventually, I just wanted to say, just because it is interesting what happened when Facebook started shutting down their their news platforms. Like traffic for all of those sites like disappeared in a day. And it was it. I mean, by the way, just so people don't misunderstand, this was like probably like 5 months that I was doing this, but it was a very funny little thing. And it was interesting because now when I see, I guess the reason I brought that up is one, because it's funny, and two, when I see the Occupy Democrats, or when the Krasensteins, they have their own thing too.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. Like, what I'm saying is, like, I've seen like how those kind of operations work. And it has very little to do with anything genuine, in my opinion. It's click.
You're absolutely what they in this the way that they describe.
Crap. It's bad for people. I think it's terrible.
It's all driven towards the gaming the algorithm. So it's what in this story, it's like what two news things can we squash together, like a hurricane coming and Trump doing this dumb thing, and Trump's doing this dumb thing in the face of the hurricane, and then that gets this many clicks, right? And it's again, not. But now this weird thing of like trying to cultivate an audience that just wants like repression of, because the whole article is about which I think this is again a salutary aim, that the right has Fox News, we want some for the left, but like when you're doing it that way, you're not. I mean, it really is like just creating this desire to imprison and just to like, yeah,
to punish your political opponents.
Right. There you go.
I think like exactly in the same way that Fox News just promotes. I mean, Fox News, like you watch that channel and it's extremely violent, right? And like the underlying desire there is to like harm your political opponents and like the left and like the dangerous people who are coming to the right.
Yeah.
The dangerous people who are destroying our society, right? But I'm sorry, there is like a democratic media audience out there who wants the exact same thing. I mean, look at the pleasure that people got out. I mean, I think it's important to push back against like vaccine hesitancy. Don't get me wrong. And like a lot of it is so ridiculous. I can understand why these things exist, but there is a kind of perverse pleasure that you can see some people having in people like suffering and dying of COVID that I just find, reprehensible. There's a celebration when you hear barbaric statements from doctors when they say things like, I'm not going to treat somebody, if they didn't get the vaccine, right? That's horrifying. That's against medical ethics. I think that's a terrible thing. But there is an audience of people who like love it, and it's the kind of thing that those kind of groups like Occupy Democrats and all those kind of like weird online sites, they feed right into that. It's the same kind of shit as the things that people criticize the right for.
Yeah, absolutely.